In light of the recent events in Oregon, I just wrote a song that I want to share with you. This is called The Ballad of Lavoy Finicum. Subtext, Cowboys Stand for Freedom. He was a man who loved to walk the land, turn his cheek but also take a stand. His conviction called, he followed what he felt was right. Well, there's no telling just what time will bring. You can live for nothing or for everything, but when the pushes come to shove, and tell me, will you find? I'm only talking about a cowboy stand for freedom. I'm just talking about a name carved in a stone, a friend and brother to anyone. He's riding off into the setting sun to drive on cowboy. He's heading home. Well, there's almost right and then there's nearly wrong as you live your life from sunrise to dawn, and then it's over and the moment's gone. You can testify to things unseen, but the world is blind, can't see a thing. All you can do is try to be a human being. I'm only talking about a cowboy stand for freedom. I'm just talking about a name carved in a stone, a friend and brother to anyone. He's riding off in the setting sun to drive on cowboy. He's heading home. I know not what course other men may take. I can't see that far down the road, but as for me and mine, make no mistake, the weight of justice is a heavy load, and I'm living by code. He left his home to go and take a stand as boys rang out across the deafened land, and in the end it was a bullet that exposed the lines. A truth remembered is a battle won, though his murder cannot be undone. It rings out like an echo, thundering across the night. Here's to all the cowboys who stand for freedom. Why do we watch them from afar with hearts of stone? He's riding off to the setting sun, the thoughts of many from the voice of one. Well, drive on cowboy, your work is done. Well, Godspeed cowboy, will carry on.
There you have it, folks. That's the Ballad of Lavoy Finnegum by Jordan Page. Head on over to jordanpagemusic.com to check out his tunes like Liberty and Arm Yourselves and others. An EP and a CD out. His CD is called Liberty. That's jordanpagemusic.com, ladies and gentlemen. Just saw him play this Saturday night here in the Sunshine State. And the guy is a great storyteller. I give you that. That man can tell a story. 6 kids, hard-working father, good husband, a religious man who loves freedom, liberty, and the American way, as we do here on Patriot Nation Radio. And I want to do a quick public service announcement from my friend Pastor Sylvester Bland and the United States of America. This is for the campaign Feed the Beast No More. Excuse me. For decades now, in the name of fun, food, and entertainment, conservatives, Christians, and patriots have created a monster. Unknowingly, after we spent billions of our hard-earned dollars supporting these corporations and their sponsors, we now see their plans. They systematically have bought politicians to spread their immoral social agenda. They have sued in court and have successfully closed down some business. Enough is enough. Let's feed the beast no more. Join the national boycott, targeted now at 8 corporations and sponsors of media. And to see that official list, head over to www.theunitedsaintsofamerica.us or call 951-360-3399. That number again, 951-360-3399. Tell them Patriot Nation Radio sent you. That's Feed the Beast No More. The United Saints of America.us. Catch Pastor Sylvester Bland Monday through Friday, 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Right there at that website it says www.theunitedsaintsofamerica.us. He's got a great show over there, folks. Pastor Sylvester Bland. Check him out. Can't go wrong there. He's really an awesome man. Met him a few times. He's standing for freedom and liberty. And today, we start a series, Constitution 101 on Patriot Nation Radio, with our good friend Charlotte Steins, the Lady Federalist. Charlotte, welcome to the show. Char, as we call you in the Patriot community. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great, Mark. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate the honor.
Awesome. It's good to have you. I'm very proud to be affiliated with the Lady Federalist, ladies and gentlemen. Real fast, before we get rolling, I'm going to tell folks how they can find the Lady Federalist, as you have a show, too, on Friday night. I believe at 5 p.m. Central Time.
Actually, the hours have been changed to 7 to 9 Eastern, which would be 6 to 8 Central, and then, of course, everybody can count backwards from there.
Excellent. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. It's the Lady Federalist. Is that on Blog Talk Radio? Give out the website so people can tune in.
Yes, it is on Blog Talk Radio. We are affiliated with the We Are One America network, and it's the Lady Federalist with Char Signs. And we will be having our 3rd show this coming Friday. I'll have a guest with me, Jessica Watson. She's a personal friend of mine and associated with the founder and commander of Lone Star Knights here in Texas. She's going to spend about an hour with me discussing how to do survival and prepping on a budget. This lady knows her stuff.
Amen. Folks, get some mason jars. That's the first rule of survival.
Right.
Yes, indeed. So, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we are going to kick off our series. It's going to be an ongoing series. This could be a lengthy series, as we're going to dissect our Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. We're going to read tonight. We're going to start our series off with reading the Declaration of Independence. Char, I hope you have one before you to follow along. I'll start the fun. This might take the whole time. It's a little bit long. It goes in my Constitution all the way to page 39 from page 35. All right, ladies and gentlemen. This was the action of the Second Continental Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13th United States of America. 13 United States of America. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect for the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable. More disposed to suffer while the evils are sufferable. Quite an interesting line there. Then to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, convinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for the future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former system of government. The history of the present king of Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpation, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to the candid world. That's a pretty in-depth couple of articles there, paragraphs. And now it goes on to kind of, explain a couple of these things. Char, you want to head off from there, and then I'll take over again in a little bit?
Absolutely, I don't mind at all. He has refused to assent to laws the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained, and when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness and invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time, after such disillusions, to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harness our people and eat out their substance. He has kept among us, in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation.
Sounds very familiar.
It does sound very familiar.
Kind of sounds very, very eerily similar to the situation we're in right now. And it's very incredible that our founding fathers had the vision to see that we would be in this situation again, and that's why they drafted this Constitution in the first place. Yeah, go ahead, Char. Keep rocking. You're doing great.
Well, I just wanted to say that a lot of these things that are going on here, where he says he, and of course the framers of this declaration, this was based on the Lee Resolution, which was written, I think, a day before the Declaration, and it's a lot smaller. So if you want to research the Lee Resolution, it's smaller than the full Declaration, but they based it on that Lee Resolution, and he is obviously referring to King George. And a lot of these things that are referenced here literally are what we're dealing with now with our federal government. Understand, though, that the period of time in which this was written was known as the Enlightenment period, and so the phraseology, the wording, and so forth is going to be a bit flowery for our tastes, but that doesn't mean that we can't understand it as everyday people.
Right.
Okay, so when you are reading this on your own, if you're reading along, I did post a link to the radio show page. Go ahead and click on it and read along, and you'll notice that the punctuation and the capitalization of the words are very important. Okay, the founders were very particular when they did this. Okay, so I'm going to continue on with what the founders were naming in the Declaration. For quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us, in many cases, of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, for suspending our own legislatures, and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy, scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. I'm going to pause there because I heard you kind of breathe there.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. This is exactly what we're going through right now. Everything that they wrote in this Declaration of Independence, these charges, I guess we could say, against King George and his tyranny that he was raining down on the people, the colonies, sound exactly, almost to the word, what we're going through today. Mercenaries, bringing an army, building army, preparing. It's really pretty scary because we know that mercenaries are involved in the situation in Oregon who have no constitutional authority or jurisdiction to do anything on our shores, and if they do, which they have done, is an act of war. So we have to see where that goes. But let's continue on. Where were we? Right here. I got you. Ready to rock. Shall I continue?
By all means.
He has constrained our fellow citizens, taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hand. He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us, and he has endeavored to bring on our inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. Now, this part right here, we talked about this previously on another show. They could almost write that part out of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, because we know the story of the Native Americans and what really took place there. And it's part of our history that is a scar that that needs to be tended to. Still, I think there's still a wound there, an injury to these people and their ancestry, and more. I think we have people out there parading around saying we need reparations for this and we need reparations for that. But what about reparations for the Native Americans and the suffering that they went through at the hands of the colonists that were starting this new government? So there are some scars, slavery and the attempted, what's the word I'm looking for, genocide of the Native Americans. So that part of the Declaration of Independence. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be a ruler of free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by the legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity. I don't know that word. That's a new one. I have to look that up in the dictionary. And we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They'd be interrupted. They, too, have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity. How do you pronounce that word? I can't pronounce that word. Consanguinity.
Consanguinity.
There you have it. And we're gonna have to get a dictionary for this apparently, because there's gonna be some words in here that we might not get. Like I've never seen that word except for in this Declaration of Independence. And
right.
So we're probably gonna have to get a dictionary as we go through this, because there will be words like this, I believe. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation, and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. We therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these United Colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from the allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. And then, of course, everybody signed it. This is a very, very deep document. It is. They were going through then what we are going through now. It is really remarkable, the similarity, when you actually read this document, of what we're going through today. I just recently talked to a friend of mine who's, being intimidated by DHS and the FBI and Homeland Security. And they're doing this coast to coast. They are now starting to squash alternative media sources who are speaking out, who are, nowadays we have the internet, and that's our proverbial soapbox where we stand up and speak to the people. Mm-hmm. I am on my soapbox right now with our good friend Char, the Lady Federalist, and we just read the Declaration of Independence. And what's our recourse, folks? We have nowhere to go but the same direction maybe as the folks who wrote this Declaration of Independence. At this rate, they killed a man already. Now, the shots of this battle that seem to have begun were not fired by patriots or citizens. They were apparently fired by, well, I guess some of them may have been citizens, but accounts are pointing towards French mercenaries hired by the International Monetary Fund. Don't know how true that is. My sources tell me that is indeed a fact. And, of course, that ain't coming out, so. It seems pretty obvious where they were heading with this document, and the fact that they were able to write the Bill of Rights, which is something that we'll be touching on here as we go along. You could tell where they were going with that Bill, Declaration of Independence, that it was leading right to the amendments. They almost spell out each amendment one by one as they're going through the Declaration of Independence and how they would write it. How important is the punctuation? Like you had touched on that a second ago, the placement of commas and capital letters and things like that. Does that change definitions of certain things, how they punctuate and capitalize?
The capitalization doesn't change the meaning of the word, but it provides the emphasis. We need to remember that these things were written during the early days of printing presses, and it certainly was during the early days of print media to begin with, and certainly our founders would not have shouted in all caps like we refer to it on the internet. Yeah. And they wouldn't have had any kind of way to italicize or underline per se. Okay, and I'm not a specialist in typesetting or anything of that nature, but it was the early days. And this very likely would have been handwritten out. So underlining, italicizing, placing things into quotation marks, that would not have been the norm. But by placing the word capitalized places the emphasis on the importance of that word. So when you see something capitalized anywhere in the founding documents, you need to recognize that it is of importance. And then, of course, punctuation is just your basic, you have to go back to your basic English Grammar 101, even from high school, and understand that the commas, the colons, the semicolons, they all are very important because they keep the phrases and clauses together in order to understand how the different phrases, clauses, and words are interrelated to each other. It's how we fully understand the intent and original purpose of either amendments in the Bill of Rights or separate clauses in the various articles of the Constitution. So the founders were very particular and purposeful in their use of punctuation and words.
Yes, ma'am. Just give me 1 second there real fast. Ladies and gentlemen, we're coming down to the last 30 seconds of the live broadcast. And to hear the rest of this awesome show, head over to www.blogtalkradio.com/Patriot Nation, or just wait around about a half hour after the show, and it'll be posted all over my Facebook pages. I'm sure Char will have it on her page. You'll be able to listen to it there. www.blogtalkradio.com/Patriot Nation. All righty. So and they phrased things and they wrote things grammatically, like you said, to tie it all together. And
correct.
It was written in such a manner that it was unmistakable what they were trying to say, correct?
That is correct. it should not be any mistake to anyone who puts effort into reading and studying it and simply applying high school English classes, even the current high school English classes. And I used to be a public school teacher, so, I mean, I know the deficit that we have currently in our public schools. Even what they're currently being taught with the basic punctuation and spelling and so forth, the basic grammar skills that they're leaving high school with, that still should be applicable. And if you have any questions about the meaning of a word, which I often do, and I mean, I'm not sitting here trying to brag, but I mean, I have a BA in Spanish and secondary education. Doesn't make me a genius by any stretch, and I certainly don't have a degree in law or any special training in law. But, you know, I often come across words. I didn't know what consanguinity meant, so I went to dictionary.com and looked it up. And
right.
And I
That's
posted
pretty
the
easy
link to, and I posted the link to the show page, and so that anyone can see it, because you will find at the good online dictionaries, whether it's Merriam-Webster or dictionary.com, you will find, not necessarily the modern meanings of words, but sometimes you need to look at the archaic meanings, and they will frequently give you the time periods in which these words were used. And since we know when the Declaration was written, we can reference there and see, okay, this is what it meant then.
Right.
Like the Second
That's
Amendment
awesome.
is often argued about, what did well-regulated mean? Because nowadays we think well-regulated means regulations, rules, laws, and codes, ordinances. That's not what well-regulated meant at the time that the Second Amendment was drafted. Well-regulated at that time meant the individual militia member, meaning each and every one of us, we the people, knew their weapon, maintained their weapon, and maintained enough clothing and ammunition and stock, food and so forth, at all times, in order so that if the government were to call them up into an active status, they were willing, ready, and able to go. That's what well-regulated means in that circumstance.
Right. And it is really incredible how they really put this document together. And if we would just follow Constitution the way it was written, not the one that's been hijacked after the Act of 1871, the original organic Constitution, the one that was actually signed by the forefathers. Just get back to that. It would be amazing, the change, the turnaround of our country. If the government would stay within their 18 enumerated powers that are laid out in the Constitution, which I believe falls under Article 1, Section 8. Am I correct? That's where the enumerated powers are, basically, that the federal government has.
Between Section 7 and 8, yes. Mm-hmm.
And when you when you really read those and put them all together, some of them tie all together to each other, and it's really 4 or 5, or 3, 4, or 5 enumerated powers, really. It's not 18. Am I correct?
There's 18 that are listed specifically to Congress, but you can boil them down to essentially 5 if you want to get down to it, by adding taxation to it, but not taxation under the 16th Amendment, but taxation for generating revenue, which is in Article 8. But making war, making peace, treaties, and international commerce. Those are essentially the 4 functions of federal government. Anything outside of that is outside of the Constitution and outside of their purview.
Well, they're violating that all the time. So, beginning of the show, I played a great song, The Ballad of Lavoy Finicum. But our friend Jordan Page has a lot of great songs. And if you don't mind, this song is called Liberty, and it's fitting with what we're talking about, because this is all about liberty and freedom and the right to pursue happiness. So I'm going to play Liberty. This is the title track from Jordan Page's CD.
Mark, before you do that,
yes,
I would like to challenge our listeners to do a little bit of homework between now and next week.
Absolutely.
Reread the Declaration, make some notes, and if you have any questions, suggestions, anything at all, shoot me a message at The Lady Federalist on Facebook, or you can shoot me an email at theladyfederalist@gmail.com, and we'll work it out together, because I'm still studying. I'm not a scholar by any stretch. We'll study it and figure it out together.
Yes, ma'am. And that's what the whole purpose of this is. This is what the whole purpose of this Constitution 101 is. We're going to learn, study, and figure it out. Ladies and gentlemen, Liberty by Jordan Page.
Why do we sit down when all should be standing? And why do we back down at the critical moment, like running away from the waves of the ocean? We head for the hills with the high tide approaching, as sand slips away from the castle. When it's time to stand upright, why do we falter, like placing our freedom on the sacrificial altar? We hold tight to our fears and defend our oppressors as we fight for their lives and become the transgressors, as pacifists transform to violent aggressors. But I'm only a stranger here. I'm a long, long way from my home. And they say I can't change all the things I find strange. But what can one man do alone? They say, what can one man do alone? When is the right time to stand up for freedom? Could it be when you start to feel creating children who'll inherit the pain and the debt of this nation and be slaves to the banks that cause hyperinflation, who are masters of commerce, lies, and bad legislation? Whoa, if you looked in the eyes of 1,000 young children through fences of razors, their innocence stolen as the red flag of tyranny flies in the open. Is that when you finally notice? Whoa, but I'm only a stranger here. I'm a long, long way from my home. And they say I can't change all the things I find strange. But what can one man do alone? What can one man do alone? I'm only a stranger looking to find better nature in my fellow man. But they keep telling me it's a sin to be free, and that's more than I'm willing to stand. Where will you be when the order is given to censor your mind as free speech is forbidden, as martyrs for peace from the world will be driven away by the sound of a bellowing thunder and choke on the blood of a dream going under? As arrogant men tear up our Constitution, and from every direction we cry revolution, standing together and without permission, soldiers for truth in the war of attrition, the love of our country as our ammunition. Oh, but I'm only a stranger here. I'm a long, long way from my home, and I'm going to change all the things I find strange, for I am not one man alone. Yes, I'm only a stranger. I'm a long, long way from my home, and I'm going to change all the things I find strange, for I know that I'm not alone. Yes, I know I'm not alone.
as Jordan Page Liberty. Hit him up, jordanpagemusic.com. Shaw, real fast, I'm going to wrap up here. Tell the folks how to find the Lady Federalist on Friday nights. One more time.
The Lady Federalist, the Lady Federalist with Char Signs on Blog Talk Radio with We Are One America Network.
There you have it. That's blogtalkradio.com/Win Network, I believe, correct?
I think so. I don't have it memorized. My apologies. But they can find me. I always post promos at least 2 or 3 days in advance on my Facebook page, and I tweet it, and I Instagram it, and I'm Lady Federalist everywhere, so you can find me.
Excellent. All right, folks, there you have it. That's our first episode of Constitution 101 on Patriot Nation Radio. Again, I want to thank you, Char, for coming on. It's been a pleasure. Folks, this is going to be an ongoing program. We'll have details for the next show coming up here in the next couple of days. Keep you posted on what we'll be doing. I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. And I wanted to make sure that you head over to my good friend Dave Bray and his good band, Madison Rising's website, www.madisonrising.com. Check out the tour dates and information. They'll be in Orlando on Thursday and Tampa on Saturday here this week. So head on out. They'll be at O'Brien's Irish Pub in Tampa, and I'm not sure of the Orlando venue, but that's Thursday and Saturday. www.madisonrising.com for tour dates and information. Be sure to head out and see those guys. And with that, I'm going to leave you with this. This is Madison Rising's version of the Star Spangled Banner. Until we meet again this Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, I leave this for you guys. Enjoy. Good night, and God bless. Thanks again, Char.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Those on